In this video you will learn all the rests of white mensural notation. Welcome to this new video about white mensural notation. I'm Ricardus and my job is to help you to learn Renaissance music theory and to discover all the secrets about early music. In the previous video I showed you all the figures of white mensural notation. In this new video we talk about the relative rests. First, let's recap all the figures of white mensural notation. The 8 figures are maxima, longa, brevis, semibrevis, minima, semiminima, chroma and semichroma. Now let's discover the relative rests starting from the smaller values. This is the rest of semichroma. This is the rest of chroma. This is the rest of semiminima. As you can see, the rest of semichroma is like the rest of semiminima plus the rest of the chroma. This is the rest of the minima. This is the rest of the semibrevis. This is the rest of the brevis. You can see the similar form of these rests than that of modern notation. The brevis rest in modern notation is this. The semibrevis rest in modern notation is this. The minima rest in modern notation is this. The semiminima rest in modern notation is this. The rest of the semiminima in the old version than the new version is the more different. This is the rest of the chroma. And this is the rest of the semichroma. Old notation, white mensural notation, and modern notation. Now let's talk about the rests of longa and maxima. In this case we have to distinguish two cases. In the previous video I explained you the concept of mensuration, that is the relationship between one note and that of the next smaller degree. I said that the mensuration can be perfect or imperfect depending on if a note contains 2 or 3 notes of the next smaller degree. Let's start with the longa. In the first example, you can see the perfect longa, composed of 3 brevis. In the second example, you can see the imperfect longa, composed of 2 brevis. Before, when I explained you all the rests of the smaller degree, I showed you the rest of the brevis. The rest of the brevis is that. It is a line that occupies only one space, a vertical line. If I have a perfect longa, the relative rest is composed of 3 brevis, of a line of 3 brevis. As you can see, this line occupies 3 spaces. The perfect longa contains 3 brevis, and the rest of the perfect longa contains 3 spaces. In a similar way, the rest of the imperfect longa occupies only 2 spaces. So you can imagine a relationship, you can imagine the same situation between the longa and the brevis, and between the brevis rests with the longa rests. So we have the rest of perfect longa and the rest of imperfect longa. Now let's see the rest of the maxima. Also in this case we have to distinguish 2 cases. As you already know, the perfect maxima contains 3 longas and the imperfect maxima contains only 2 longas. The rest of the maxima works in a similar way than the rest of the longa, but with a different situation. In the rest of the longa, depending on if the longa is perfect or imperfect, the perfection or the imperfection of the rest of the longa is determined by the number of the spaces that the rest occupies. Let's recap the situation. This is the perfect longa rest and this is the imperfect long rest. 3 perfect, 2 imperfect. Now let's consider the case in which the longa is perfect, because now we know that the maxima is perfect, but not how the longa is. So now let's consider the case in which the longa is perfect. The perfection or the imperfection, in this case the perfection of the maxima, is determined by the number of the vertical line. So if the maxima is perfect, we have 3 lines. 3 vertical lines are the signal that this maxima is perfect, and the 3 spaces of each vertical line are the signal that each longa of this maxima is perfect. So the relative situation when the longa is imperfect is this. I have 3 lines of 2 spaces each one. So the perfection of the maxima in the relative rest is determined by the number of the vertical lines. In a similar way, the imperfection of the maxima, the imperfect maxima, the relative rest, if the longa is perfect, is composed of only 2 vertical, 3 spaces line. And the imperfect maxima and the rest of the imperfect maxima, when the longa is imperfect, is composed of 2 vertical lines of 2 spaces. So we have these 4 situations. Let's recap them. Perfect maxima and perfect longa. Perfect maxima and imperfect longa. Imperfect maxima and perfect longa. Imperfect maxima and imperfect longa. Be careful. This rest and this one other are not the same. This is 2 plus 2 plus 2. The total is 6 brevis. This is 3 plus 3. The total also is 3, is 6 brevis, but in a different division. 2 plus 2 plus 2, the first. 3 plus 3, the second. Well, for this new episode is all. Subscribe the Semibrevis membership on my Patreon page to download the paper of this video with the example, with all the explanation and some exercises. I hope that this video has been useful for you, and I'm waiting for you in the next one. Bye! Do you want to download the PDF of this video? Subscribe the Semibrevis membership on my Patreon and have the access to all the PDFs of all my videos. Moreover, with the Brevis membership you can also send me your exercises and harmony realizations, and I'll correct them for you.